Foretold Darkness. Navarre shot up in bed with a terrified gasp. Icy perspiration slicked his slim elven body, and he shivered despite the warm summer night. He'd had the nightmare again, the same one every night for the last 3 days. It always felt so real, and it was more detailed and frightening each night. Tonight, he felt the memory of sinister fingers caressing his arm, and rubbed it absent-mindedly. He stood in a dying world amid smoking rubble and charred corpses, with the stench of burnt flesh acrid in his nostrils. 3 imps appeared, each holding a glowing scepter. The imps were small, bony creatures with faces resembling stone, and with leathery wings and oversized horns and ears.
"The foretold darkness will be upon us soon,"
said the tallest of the 3, whose head reached Navarre's knee. "What foretold darkness?" he asked.
"The darkness has been foretold,"
said the tallest imp insistently.
"You are the chosen one. You must find the light before it's too late. Only you can save the realm."
"Hurry!" urged the 3rd imp, as ethereal, withered fingers brushed Navarre's arm. It was beginning to feel as if supernatural beings were trying to warn him of something. The elven gods, perhaps, finally returned? Why would they take the form of imps, though? Imps were mischievous little slugs that should never be taken seriously, and wouldn't bother to warn an elf of danger anyway. Still, he had sensed the presence of someone real. Although it was hours before dawn, Navarre got dressed and took a walk to the great elven library, determined to see what he could dig up on ancient prophecies. By the time the great sun rose over the trees, its golden rays spilling in through the library's windows, Navarre was exasperated. There were hundreds of prophecies made over the centuries, yet none spoke of any coming darkness. What did it all mean?
"What are you doing here so early?"
asked a voice from behind, making Navarre jump. Ardreth, the librarian, came to stand next to him and peer over his shoulder. Navarre sighed and told the old elf what he was looking for. Ardreth shook his head.
"I know every single book in this library, and every single prophecy ever made. There is no prophecy about coming darkness."
His eyes glazed for a moment, and then he added,
"Perhaps you misinterpreted your dream. Perhaps it's not intended to be literal."
Navarre stretched and yawned.
"Maybe, but—"
He paused, unsure if he should share the presence he'd felt, even after he'd awoken. Ardreth waited patiently for him to continue. Navarre sighed again and told the old elf.
"Hmm."
Ardreth looked thoughtful.
"Imps, you say? I wouldn't trust anything an imp says."
But what if it's not literal, as you say?
"Honestly, if imps have anything to do with it, I wouldn't take it seriously. These lesser beings couldn't possibly have anything important to share, and they certainly can't be any type of threat."
Ardreth paused.
"Why don't you see if you can get a sleeping herb from Tessarion? She has this one that gives you a totally dreamless sleep. Guaranteed."
But what if the imp's presence is only metaphorical? I mean, what are the chances that an actual imp would warn an elf of anything?
"Good point," said Ardreth. "Maybe it means that the imps are the danger. Still, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. I would try the herbs. A good night's sleep will help you think straight.
Feeling unsettled, Navarre nodded. He might just do that. He decided to go for a walk in the forest before breakfast, maybe even have a breakfast of berries picked along the way. The crisp morning air would clear his head. Navarre had been walking for 10 minutes when he jolted to a stop. To his left, what looked like a withered old arm and hand lay in the bushes, partly concealed. His blood ran cold. It looked identical to the hand that had brushed his arm at the end of last night's dream. It seemed his dream was to be taken literally, after all. He bent to examine the limb. It appeared to be that of an orc. A rather emaciated orc, but an orc nonetheless. He straightened without touching it. Who knew what manner of diseases it might hold?
Only you can save the realm.
Navarre swiveled, instinctively drawing his sword. His eyes widened at the sight of 3 imps, each holding a glowing scepter. The imps from his dream! He found his voice when they took a step towards him. Halt! Since when do you imps care about elves? He asked, his tone harsher than he'd intended. The tallest imp pointed his scepter at Navarre. His head was about Navarre's knee height, just like in his dream. Navarre tensed. The tall imp replied,
The coming darkness will affect us all, from imp to elf to orc to dragon to everything in between. Only you can save the realm, chosen one,
repeated another elf. A shudder ran through Navarre. Chosen one? No way. Why me? I'm nobody. Not the best at anything. He scowled, hating to admit it, and to an imp of all things.
It's foretold,
insisted the middle imp.
Only you,
murmured the tall imp, and then his tone turned ominous.
If you do not, we are all doomed.
Are you ready?
The entire realm depends on you. There is no time to waste.
Navarre's head reeled. Who are you?
We are your protectors,
they chorused in a loud whisper.
Are you ready to fulfill your destiny?
asked the shortest imp again. Navarre gave himself a mental shake. There is no such prophecy. I checked. The 3 imps exchanged glances with expressions that Navarre could not interpret.
You mean there is no such elven prophecy? But what do you know of the imp prophecies?
The imp's voice contained a hint of hope. Or had Navarre imagined it? His brow creased. Imps have prophecies? I have never heard of a single one.
Of course not. They are private.
But not this one, commented Navarre.
This one pertains to the entire realm.
The tall imp took another step closer and clutched Navarre's sleeve.
Please,
he said, his tone urgent as he looked up at the elf.
You must believe us.
With his every sense adamant that the imps were mistaken, Navarre heard himself asking, What do I have to do? And what exactly is this darkness of which you speak?
You must find the light in the stinging fields of Eklund.
The light? The stinging fields of Eklund? They must be joking. Anyone who went into the thousands of acres of nettles came out itching for weeks.
We cannot tell more than that.
They glanced at each other.
The prophecy does not specify. It just says only you can find it.
Hours later, Navarre stumbled out of the nettle field and sprinted to the nearby river, into which he immersed himself with a shudder of relief. He couldn't stay in the water forever, though, and the insanity inducing burning itching would return the moment he left the river. He didn't have time to consider the implications of his failure to find anything that could be considered to be the light. A wild, rasping, hacking sound filled the air, almost like someone choking on something and enjoying it. It took Navarre a few moments to figure out it was the imps. Two rolled on the grass holding their stomachs, and the tallest one bent over double holding his sides. All three's thin, stony lips were stretched upward in what Navarre could only assume were grotesque grins. Were they laughing? Its eyes streaming, the tallest one rasped,
I can't believe you fell for that. Chosen one indeed,
squealed the shortest imp.
You who is the most useless elf of all.
They lapsed into another round of laughter. Navarre scratched his face again, and his fingers came away bloody. He would need herbal paste to ease the itching. He scowled. For a freaking joke? It had been a prank?
Ooh, he's going to be itching for weeks.
More laughter that grated on Navarre's last nerve. The imp's words rang in his ear. You who is the most useless elf of all. So that was what had given them the courage to mess with him. They thought he was powerless to do anything about it. He could not allow this prank to go unpunished. To do so would invite imps all over to start messing with elves, something their race had long ago learnt never to do. They needed to be put in their place, and fast. Navarre let his magic flow into the earth to communicate with the forest life. Long, thick vines reached down from the trees to snake around the imps and lift them, kicking, their rasping, hacking laughter turning to frightened squeals and screeches as they thrashed in vain to free themselves. The vines shook the imps and then stretched out to dangle them over the water in front of Navarre. I'll foretell you some darkness, he murmured, the peril his tone promised stilling them instantly. Mess with an elf again, and you will see nothing but darkness for the rest of your wretched lives. The vines poked at the imp's eyes, and they squealed again. Whether it's a wild animal that eats out your eyes, or a tree limb, or a vine that pokes it, lose them you will, should you ever try your pranks on another elf. As if on cue, a wood fox at the river's edge licked its lips and bared sharp teeth at the imps. Navarre gave them a mirthless smile. And don't think I won't know if you do. Scratching the burning itch all over, Navarre left the river and began the long trek home. He heard a loud splash behind him just as he moved out of sight of the river, and knew that the vines had released the imps. That'll teach them to downplay the abilities of elves. Not even the most useless elf of all was useless.